If you're over 40 and still telling yourself you have plenty of time, that belief might be the most expensive mistake left on the table. Not because you failed, not because you did anything wrong, but because time behaves very differently after 40 than it did before. Warren Buffett understood this better than almost anyone. He didn't panic about age. He didn't believe 40 meant it was too late. But he did believe something changes at this point, and pretending it doesn't is dangerous. Most people over 40 don't feel broke. They feel busy, responsible, tired, stable enough. That's what makes this moment so tricky. You have income, you have experience, you have a routine. On the surface, everything looks fine, but Buffett noticed that this is exactly the age when people quietly lock themselves into paths they can't easily change later. Not with one big decision, but with a series of small assumptions. I'll catch up later. I'll work a few more years. I'll figure it out once things slow down. Buffett didn't like those assumptions because he knew something most people don't want to face. After 40, time stops feeling flexible and starts feeling expensive. Every year matters more. Every mistake costs more. Every delay is harder to undo. That doesn't mean panic is required. It means clarity is required. Buffett believed the biggest danger after 40 isn't making bad moves. It's continuing with a plan that no longer fits reality. Most people over 40 are still using a money mindset built for their 20s or 30s. They're still thinking, I'll just earn more. I'll grind a bit longer. I'll take care of it eventually. Buffett knew that mindset quietly stops working because energy changes, risk tolerance changes, obligations increase, and time, real time, starts to feel shorter. Here's the uncomfortable part. Most people over 40 don't feel urgency because nothing is broken yet. Bills are paid, careers are stable, life keeps moving. But Buffett saw that stability can hide danger, because stability often delays hard questions. Questions like, what am I building that doesn't require me? What happens if my income slows down? What actually changes in the next 10 to 15 years? Buffett believed that after 40, pretending you'll have the same flexibility later is a mistake. Not a dramatic one, a quiet one. And quiet mistakes are the hardest to correct. This hook matters because many people over 40 assume the window is still wide open. Buffett believed the window is still open, but narrower than most people admit. And pretending otherwise leads to regret, not freedom. Here's something Buffett noticed after decades of watching people. People don't regret working hard. They regret working without direction, especially later in life. At 25, working hard fixes many mistakes. At 45, working hard without leverage just burns energy. Buffett didn't believe effort stops mattering after 40. He believed effort needs to be aimed differently. And most people don't adjust. They keep pushing forward on autopilot. That's the trap. After 40, autopilot becomes dangerous because momentum is powerful, but momentum in the wrong direction is hard to stop. Buffett didn't want people to wake up at 55 and realize they spent 15 years reinforcing a path that led nowhere new. That's why his advice after 40 feels uncomfortable, because it forces you to look honestly at where things are actually going, not where you hope they'll go. Most people over 40 don't want to look too closely, not because they're weak, but because life is heavy at this stage. Responsibilities stack up. People depend on you. Risk feels expensive. Buffett understood that fear doesn't show up as panic. It shows up as avoidance, avoiding tough decisions, avoiding reassessment, avoiding change. And avoidance quietly eats time. Another uncomfortable truth Buffett saw. Many people over 40 are still waiting for someday to arrive. Someday when the mortgage is smaller. Someday when kids are older. Someday when work slows down. Buffett knew someday rarely arrives the way people imagine. Life doesn't get simpler, it gets fuller. And fullness leaves less room to fix things later. This is why Buffett believed the question after 40 isn't, can I still succeed? It's, am I still being honest about what matters now? Because honesty changes strategy. The strategy that works at 25 is about growth. The strategy that works at 45 is about preservation, leverage, and focus. Most people never make that shift. They keep chasing more without protecting what they already built. Buffett didn't do that. He became more selective with age, not more aggressive. That surprises people. They assume urgency means risk. Buffett believed urgency means clarity. Clarity about what you can no longer afford to ignore, what no longer deserves your time, what must start working without your effort. Another reason this topic matters is that many people over 40 confuse comfort with safety. Comfort feels good, routine feels safe. But Buffett knew routine can quietly lock you into outcomes you didn't choose. When years pass quickly inside routine, change feels harder every year. Buffett didn't fear change, but he respected timing. And timing matters more after 40. You can't experiment endlessly. You can't afford repeated resets. You can't burn time learning the hard way forever. That doesn't mean fear. It means intentional decisions matter more now than ever. This hook is uncomfortable because it challenges a comforting belief that you can fix everything later. Buffett didn't believe that. He believed after 40, later gets expensive. Not impossible, but expensive. That's a big difference. Most people think regret comes from failure. Buffett saw regret come from delay. Delay in building assets, delay in simplifying life, delay in focusing on what truly compounds, and delay feels harmless until it isn't. The reason this advice feels so personal is because most people over 40 already sense something is different. Energy isn't the same. Recovery isn't the same. Tolerance for stress isn't the same. But they don't connect that feeling to money decisions. Buffett did. He believed money strategy must change as life changes. Not because you're weaker, but because reality shifts. This video isn't about telling you it's too late. Buffett never believed that. It's about telling you that doing the wrong things now costs far more than it used to, and doing the right things now matters far more than it did before. That's the part most people miss. At 25, mistakes are cheap. At 45, mistakes are heavy. Not because you're old, because time has momentum, and momentum compounds in both directions. Buffett didn't want people to fight time. He wanted them to align with it. This hook sets up one simple but uncomfortable truth. If you are over 40, doing nothing different is still a decision, and it's usually the most expensive one. By the end of this video, you'll understand what Buffett believed needs to change now. Not out of fear, not out of panic, but out of respect for reality. Because after 40, clarity beats optimism, and intentional action beats hope. At this stage of life, most people don't feel lost. They feel established. There's a routine, there's a rhythm, there's a sense of having survived the hard early years, and that's exactly why this moment matters so much. Buffett didn't believe that turning 40 suddenly makes you late to the game. He believed it marks a shift in the rules, and many people keep playing as if nothing changed. That's the real issue. Before 40, money decisions are mostly about growth and recovery. You can afford to try things, you can afford mistakes, you can afford restarts. After 40, money decisions become more about direction and protection. Not because life is ending, but because life is fuller. There are more people involved, more expectations, more responsibilities tied to your income and time. Buffett believed ignoring this shift leads people into quiet traps, not dramatic failures. Just long periods of effort that don't move the needle anymore. This intro matters because most people over 40 still think their biggest advantage is effort. They believe, if I just work harder, if I just push a little longer, if I just stay consistent. Buffett didn't dismiss effort, but he knew effort alone stops scaling at this stage. Effort worked wonders in your 20s. It worked reasonably well in your 30s. After 40, effort without leverage becomes exhausting. That's not a flaw, that's physics. Buffett always respected physics. Time has momentum, habits have momentum, expenses have momentum, and momentum doesn't reverse easily. That's why he believed reassessment after 40 isn't optional, it's responsible. Not reassessment driven by fear, reassessment driven by honesty, honesty about where income really comes from, honesty about what still depends on your daily effort, honesty about what happens if you slow down. Most people avoid these questions because they feel heavy. Buffett leaned into them because they bring clarity. And clarity reduces anxiety. Another reason this intro matters is that many people over 40 quietly feel pressure, but don't talk about it. Pressure to maintain lifestyle, pressure to support others, pressure to keep up appearances. And pressure changes how people make decisions. Under pressure, people default to what's familiar. They double down on routine. They avoid disruption. Buffett knew that routine can quietly become a cage if it's never questioned. This doesn't mean routine is bad. It means routine needs to serve your future, not trap it. One of Buffett's most overlooked insights is that money strategy must evolve with age. What worked earlier doesn't automatically keep working later. At 25, income growth solves many problems. At 45, income growth often just maintains the status quo. That's a hard truth. Many people over 40 are earning more than ever and still feel stuck, not because they failed, but because earning more stopped creating freedom. Buffett noticed that freedom after 40 doesn't come from earning more. It comes from reducing dependence on earning. That's a very different goal, and it requires a different mindset. This intro is about preparing your thinking for that shift, because if you approach the rest of this video with a just work harder mindset, Buffett's advice will sound pessimistic. It's not. It's practical. Buffett wasn't focused on age. He was focused on runway. How much runway do you have before decisions become forced? Forced decisions are the enemy of good outcomes. If you must work, you have fewer choices. If you must earn, you accept bad terms. If you must rush, you make mistakes. Buffett believed the goal after 40 is to increase optionality, not reduce it. Optionality means choices. Choices about time, choices about pace, choices about stress. That's the real measure of success later in life. Another misunderstanding this intro clears up is the idea that Buffett's advice is only for the wealthy. It isn't. It's for people who don't want to feel trapped by momentum. Buffett saw people at every income level struggle with the same issue after 40. High earners with no flexibility, business owners tied to daily operations, professionals locked into expensive lifestyles. The problem wasn't income, it was structure. Structure that made slowing down impossible. Buffett believed after 40, structure matters more than speed. You don't need faster growth, you need better alignment. Alignment between how you earn, how you live, and how much energy you realistically have. Ignoring alignment leads to burnout. Burnout doesn't announce itself early. It shows up gradually. You feel less patient, less motivated, less excited about just pushing harder. Buffett didn't see that as weakness. He saw it as a signal that strategy needs to change. This intro also matters because many people over 40 are caught between two bad ideas. One is panic. It's too late. I missed my chance. The other is denial. Nothing needs to change yet. Buffett rejected both. He believed it's not too late, but not early anymore either. That middle truth is uncomfortable. It requires calm urgency, not fear-driven action, not blind optimism, but thoughtful adjustment. That's what this video is about. Another key idea to understand before moving forward is that Buffett didn't believe in chasing radical change after 40. He believed in simplifying. Simplifying investments, simplifying expenses, simplifying commitments. Complexity is manageable when energy is high. It's exhausting when energy becomes valuable. Buffett believed energy after 40 should be spent carefully, on things that compound, on things that reduce stress, on things that don't require constant attention. This is why his advice feels calm instead of urgent. He wasn't trying to scare people into action. He was trying to prevent regret. Regret doesn't come from age. It comes from realizing you didn't adapt when adaptation was still possible. Buffett adapted constantly but quietly. He didn't overhaul his life every decade. He made small, intelligent shifts. Those shifts added up. This intro is also meant to remove shame. Being over 40 doesn't mean you failed. It means you have context. You've seen what works and what doesn't. You've felt stress and stability. You've experienced momentum. Buffett believed experience is a powerful asset if you actually use it. Ignoring experience leads people to repeat patterns that no longer serve them. Buffett didn't repeat patterns blindly. He refined them. Another point that matters here is that Buffett didn't believe success after 40 is about catching up. Catching up creates desperation. Desperation creates bad decisions. He believed success after 40 is about protecting what matters and positioning for what's next. That shift removes panic. You stop racing the clock. You start working with it. That's a huge mental change. This intro prepares you for the next section, where we'll clearly define the real problem Buffett saw after 40, not in abstract terms, but in a way that explains why so many people feel stuck even when nothing is wrong. Once you see that problem clearly, the rest of Buffett's advice starts to feel obvious instead of scary. The problem Buffett saw after 40 isn't that people suddenly start making bad decisions. It's that they stop questioning the decisions they're already making. By this age, most people have a system, a way they earn money, a way they spend it, a way they save, invest, or don't, and that system feels stable. That's exactly the problem. Stability creates comfort. Comfort reduces urgency. Reduced urgency delays change. Buffett understood that after 40, delay becomes expensive, not emotionally, not socially, mathematically. The first part of the problem is that time no longer cushions mistakes the way it used to. At 25, a bad year doesn't matter much. At 35, it matters a little. At 45, it matters a lot. Not because you're worse, but because there's less runway to recover. Most people don't adjust their thinking to this reality. They keep behaving as if time is still flexible. They assume, I can always work longer. I can always earn more. I can always fix it later. Buffett didn't assume that. He saw that energy declines, stress tolerance shrinks, and life gets more demanding. The problem isn't age. The problem is planning as if age doesn't matter. The second part of the problem is income dependence. Many people over 40 are earning more than ever, but they're also more dependent on that income than ever. Mortgage, family, lifestyle, commitments. Everything is built around continued earning. Buffett saw this as dangerous. Not because income is bad, but because income that stops means everything stops. If your money only moves when you move, you're fragile. That fragility grows with age, illness, burnout, industry change, economic shifts. Buffett believed after 40, relying only on earned income is risky, even if that income is high. Yet most people double down on it. They work harder, they accept more stress. They postpone building anything that works without them, because stopping to restructure feels risky. But Buffett knew that not restructuring is the real risk. The third part of the problem is lifestyle lock-in. By 40, most people aren't just earning, they're maintaining. Maintaining a home, maintaining appearances, maintaining expectations. These things quietly become fixed costs. Fixed costs reduce freedom. When costs are fixed, income becomes mandatory. Mandatory income removes flexibility. Buffett believed flexibility is one of the most valuable assets later in life. Yet most people trade it away slowly, without noticing. One upgrade at a time, one commitment at a time, one we-can-afford-it decision at a time. Nothing feels reckless, but eventually, changing course feels impossible. That's when people feel trapped, not by money, but by decisions made years earlier. The fourth part of the problem is mental inertia. After decades of doing things a certain way, change feels heavy. People tell themselves, this is just how things are. I'm too far into change now. It's safer to stick with what I know. Buffett didn't confuse familiarity with safety. He knew familiarity often hides risk, especially when the environment changes. Careers change faster now. Industries disappear. Skills lose value. Buffett believed mental flexibility matters more with age, not less. But most people become mentally rigid because change feels expensive. That rigidity is dangerous. The fifth part of the problem is delayed realization. Most people don't feel behind at 40. They feel on track. But Buffett saw that being on track doesn't guarantee the track leads somewhere you want to be. You can be consistent and still end up somewhere disappointing. That's a brutal truth. Consistency without direction compounds mediocrity. Buffett believed direction must be reassessed as life changes. Many people never do. They just keep going. The sixth part of the problem is confusing effort with progress. After 40, many people are working harder than ever. Long hours, more responsibility, more pressure, but effort doesn't automatically equal progress. Buffett believed progress comes from leverage, not exhaustion. Leverage means assets that grow without effort, systems that don't need constant attention, structures that reduce stress over time. Most people over 40 don't have enough leverage. They have effort, and effort has limits. The seventh part of the problem is time compression. Years start passing faster, not emotionally, structurally. Responsibilities compress time, days fill up, weeks blur together, years disappear. Buffett saw people blink and lose a decade, not because they were lazy, but because they were busy. Busy maintaining, busy providing, busy surviving their own success. The problem is that busy people rarely stop to redesign their lives. They postpone thinking, and postponed thinking is expensive after 40. The eighth part of the problem is risk avoidance at the wrong time. Ironically, many people take the most financial risks early and the wrong ones later. Early risks are often harmless. Late risks are dangerous. After 40, some people panic and chase returns. Others freeze and avoid change completely. Both reactions are driven by fear. Buffett didn't like fear-driven decisions. He believed fear leads to extremes. The ninth part of the problem is misunderstanding what too late really means. Many people assume they missed their chance and stop trying. Others assume they have plenty of time and don't adjust. Both are wrong. Buffett believed it's not too late, but the margin for error is smaller. That requires precision, not panic. The 10th part of the problem is ignoring dependency. Dependency on income, dependency on health, dependency on market conditions. The more dependencies you have, the less control you have. Buffett believed control becomes more valuable with age. Yet most people don't actively reduce dependency. They accept it as normal. The 11th part of the problem is postponed simplification. Simplifying life early feels unnecessary. Simplifying life late feels urgent. Buffett simplified early. Most people wait until complexity becomes painful. Pain is a bad motivator. It leads to rushed decisions. The 12th part of the problem is assuming stability equals safety. Stable income doesn't mean stable future. Stable routines don't mean stable outcomes. Buffett knew stability can create blind spots. Blind spots are dangerous. The 13th part of the problem is identity conflict. People over 40 often see themselves as providers. Providers prioritize others over structure. That's noble, but risky if it leads to self-neglect. Buffett believed taking care of structure is part of providing. The 14th part of the problem is underestimating compounding's second half. Compounding works best when it has time and consistency. After 40, compounding still works, but it needs help. Higher savings rate, better focus, less waste. Many people don't adjust. They keep saving casually instead of intentionally. The 15th part of the problem is emotional exhaustion. Constant pressure wears people down. Exhausted people avoid big decisions. Avoidance costs time. Time is expensive now. The 16th part of the problem is waiting for clarity. Clarity doesn't arrive on its own. It's created by action. Buffett believed waiting for certainty is a mistake, especially later in life. The 17th part of the problem is hope-based planning. Hoping income grows, hoping expenses stay manageable, hoping health holds up. Buffett preferred planning over hope. The 18th part of the problem is misplaced optimism. Optimism is useful, but dangerous when it delays action. After 40, optimism without adjustment becomes denial. The 19th part of the problem is underestimating future stress. Stress rarely decreases on its own. Buffett planned for stress, not against it. The 20th and biggest part of the problem is this. Most people over 40 are still living with a financial strategy designed for a younger version of themselves, and that strategy slowly stops working. Not loudly, not dramatically, but relentlessly. That's the problem Buffett wanted people to see, not to scare them, but to give them one last chance to adjust before choices become forced. Once Buffett clearly saw the problem, his response wasn't dramatic. He didn't say people over 40 should take wild risks. He didn't say they should chase fast money. He didn't say they should try to catch up at all costs. In fact, he believed the opposite. After 40, Buffett thought the most important shift is moving from growth by effort to growth by structure. That single change explains almost everything else he recommended. Before 40, effort does a lot of the work. After 40, effort alone starts working against you. Not because effort is bad, but because it stops scaling. Buffett believed this is the age where people must ask a hard question. What continues to work if I stop pushing? That question makes many people uncomfortable. Because for most people, the honest answer is not much. Income stops when work stops. Progress slows when attention shifts. Money needs constant management. Buffett believed that after 40, this dependence becomes the biggest risk. So the first thing he emphasized was reducing dependence on daily effort. Not eliminating work, reducing reliance on it. That means building things that grow without constant input. Assets instead of just income. Systems instead of constant decisions. processes instead of hustle. Buffett didn't believe this required complexity. He believed it required focus. The second shift Buffett believed was necessary after 40 is simplification. Many people think financial progress comes from adding more strategies, more accounts, more moving parts. Buffett thought complexity is the enemy of durability. Complex systems break under stress. Stress increases with age, not because life is worse, but because stakes are higher. More people depend on you. More consequences follow mistakes. So Buffett simplified as he aged. Fewer investments, fewer decisions, clear rules. He believed clarity protects you when energy dips. The third shift Buffett emphasized was raising the importance of margin of safety. When you're young, you can recover from thin margins. When you're older, thin margins create anxiety. Buffett believed margin of safety is what allows you to sleep well, and sleep matters more than returns. Margin of safety means lower fixed expenses, fewer obligations, cash buffers, conservative assumptions. Most people postpone margin of safety because it feels restrictive. Buffett believed it becomes liberating later. The fourth shift Buffett emphasized was changing the goal. Before 40, the goal is often growth. After 40, the goal becomes resilience. Resilience means you can handle shocks, you can slow down if needed, you can say no to bad deals, you're not forced to act. Buffett believed resilience compounds peace of mind. Peace of mind is underrated, but it shapes decisions. Stressed people make worse choices. Buffett structured his life to reduce stress, not maximize excitement. The fifth shift Buffett believed was critical is owning more of your time. Many people over 40 have money, but no time. Meetings, deadlines, obligations. Buffett valued time above money. He believed that after 40, time becomes more valuable than marginal income, so decisions should reflect that. Is this commitment worth my time? Is this extra income worth the stress? Does this add freedom or remove it? Most people never ask these questions explicitly. Buffett did. The sixth shift Buffett emphasized was stopping unnecessary optimization. Young people optimize everything. Older people burn out doing it. Buffett believed optimization increases fragility. The more optimized your life is, the less room it has for error. After 40, errors cost more. So Buffett left slack. Slack in his schedule, slack in his finances, slack in his decisions. Slack isn't inefficiency, it's insurance. The seventh shift Buffett believed was essential is fewer, better decisions. Many people think being active means being effective. Buffett knew effectiveness often comes from inactivity, waiting, observing, saying no. After 40, energy is finite. Buffett believed energy should be spent on only the highest impact decisions. Everything else should be automated or eliminated. The eighth shift Buffett emphasized was avoiding urgency-driven behavior. Urgency is dangerous at any age, but especially later. Urgency pushes people into overtrading, overworking, overcommitting. Buffett believed urgency is a sign of poor structure. If everything feels urgent, something is wrong. Good structure removes urgency. The ninth shift Buffett believed was necessary is accepting slower, visible progress. After 40, visible progress often slows. That doesn't mean real progress stops. Buffett believed invisible progress matters more now, reducing risk, increasing flexibility, strengthening foundations. These don't feel exciting, but they matter. The 10th shift Buffett emphasized was protecting downside over chasing upside. Young people chase upside because they can afford losses. After 40, losses hurt more. Buffett believed avoiding big mistakes becomes more important than finding big wins. Not because wins don't matter, but because recovery time is shorter. The 11th shift Buffett focused on was intentional spending. He didn't believe in deprivation. He believed in alignment. Spending that adds joy and meaning is fine. Spending that adds pressure is dangerous. After 40, pressure accumulates, so spending must be chosen carefully. The 12th shift Buffett believed was critical is honest accounting of reality. Many people lie to themselves gently. I'm fine. I'll fix it later. This is normal. Buffett didn't do gentle lies. He preferred uncomfortable truth, because truth gives you options. Denial removes them. The 13th shift Buffett emphasized was adjusting expectations, not lowering them, but redefining them. Success after 40 isn't about proving anything. It's about sustainability, sustainable income, sustainable stress, sustainable pace. Burning yourself out to maintain appearances is not success. The The 14th shift Buffett believed was essential is building income that doesn't require constant presence. Dividends. Businesses with managers, assets that operate quietly. Buffett loved things that worked while he slept. After 40, that matters more than ever. The 15th shift Buffett emphasized was protecting optionality. Optionality means you can change your mind, you can slow down, you can adapt. Debt kills optionality. High fixed costs kill optionality. Buffett avoided both. The 16th shift Buffett believed was necessary is accepting trade-offs consciously. You can't have everything. Buffett chose freedom over status, calm over speed, durability over excitement. Most people don't choose consciously. They drift into trade-offs they don't want. The 17th shift Buffett emphasized was longer-term thinking with fewer variables. He didn't want complicated plans. He wanted plans that survived real life. The 18th shift Buffett believed was important is stopping comparison. Comparison fuels unnecessary risk. After 40, comparison is toxic. Buffett stayed in his lane. The 19th shift Buffett emphasized was respecting energy. Energy is finite. Buffett believed wasting energy is wasting life. The 20th and most important shift Buffett believed is this. After 40, money strategy is no longer about becoming more. It's about becoming harder to break. That's the development in one sentence. Everything Buffett recommended flows from that idea. Not fear, not panic, not regret, just alignment with reality. This is the point where the idea stops being interesting and starts being personal. Because after 40, most people don't need more information. They need honesty. Not the kind that scares you, the kind that clears the fog. Buffett understood something that only becomes obvious with age. Time stops feeling like a resource you can borrow from. It starts feeling like something you either respected or didn't. And that realization doesn't arrive with drama. It arrives quietly. You notice it when recovery takes longer, when energy runs out sooner, when decisions feel heavier than they used to. Nothing is wrong, but something is different. Buffett paid attention to that difference. He noticed that this is the age when people quietly start making decisions based on fear instead of intention. Not obvious fear, subtle fear. Fear of slowing down. Fear of making changes. Fear of admitting the current path might not lead where they hoped. And fear doesn't scream. Fear whispers, just keep going. Don't rock the boat. Buffett knew that whisper was dangerous, because just keep going works when time is abundant. After 40, it locks you in. This is the age when people start realizing that effort alone doesn't solve everything anymore. You can work harder and still feel like you're running in place. You can earn more and still feel dependent. You can stay busy and still feel stuck. That feeling doesn't mean you failed. It means the rules changed. Buffett didn't fight that change. He adapted to it. The climax of this lesson is understanding that after 40, the biggest risk is not making a wrong move. It's making no move at all. Because doing nothing different is still a decision. And after 40, the cost of staying the same rises every year. Most people don't realize this because life still looks stable. Income arrives, bills get paid, routine continues. But stability can be deceptive. Buffett saw stability hide danger more often than chaos. Chaos forces change. Stability delays it. Delayed change is expensive at this stage. This is the moment when people start doing quiet math in their heads. How long can I realistically keep this pace? What happens if my income drops? What if my health changes? What if I just want less stress? These questions don't come from panic. They come from awareness, and awareness is the beginning of wisdom. Buffett didn't believe everyone should retire early. He believed everyone should have the ability to slow down. That's a huge difference. Slowing down is a choice. Being forced to slow down is a problem. The climax is realizing that many people over 40 don't actually have that choice. Not because they're irresponsible, but because their entire financial structure depends on continued effort. If effort stops, everything stops. That's fragile, and fragility feels fine until it doesn't. Buffett believed fragility is the enemy after 40, because recovery takes longer. Mistakes cost more. Stress compounds faster. This is where regret usually starts to form. Not as pain, but as reflection. If I had simplified earlier, if I had built more margin, if I had focused on leverage instead of just income. Buffett saw these thoughts in people who did everything right. They worked hard, they stayed employed, they were responsible. But responsibility without structure leads to exhaustion. Exhaustion leads to poor decisions. Buffett wanted people to avoid that spiral. He believed the goal after 40 is not acceleration, it's stability with flexibility. That sounds boring, but boring is powerful, because boring survives. The climax deepens when you realize that after 40, optimism can become dangerous if it delays action. Optimism says, things will work out. Reality says, only if you adjust. Buffett never relied on optimism, he relied on preparation. Preparation isn't pessimism, it's respect for uncertainty. Uncertainty doesn't disappear with age, it increases. Health becomes less predictable. Markets change, industries shift. Buffett didn't assume he could outwork uncertainty. He assumed uncertainty would eventually win. So he built systems that didn't require perfect conditions. That's the mindset shift most people miss. They keep planning as if the future will cooperate. Buffett planned as if the future would surprise him. This is also the moment when people realize how fast years now pass. Not emotionally, structurally. Weeks fill up faster. Months blur together. Years disappear inside routine. Buffett noticed that after 40, routine accelerates time. And accelerated time punishes bad structure. This is why the climax isn't about money. It's about control. Who controls your time? Who controls your income? Who controls your pace? If the answer is my job or my obligations, then the system is fragile. Buffett believed true wealth after 40 is not about net worth. It's about how many decisions you can make calmly. Calm decisions require margin. Margin requires structure. Structure requires intention. Most people over 40 have never intentionally redesigned their financial lives. They just kept adding layers. More responsibility, more commitments, more pressure. Eventually, the weight becomes noticeable. That's the climax. The moment you realize the weight didn't appear suddenly, it accumulated quietly, and now it needs to be addressed. Not later, not someday, but now. Buffett didn't want people to panic at this realization. He wanted them to feel focused. Focused on what actually matters, not status, not comparison, not proving anything, but sustainability. Sustainability of income, sustainability of health, sustainability of stress levels. Buffett believed stress is the silent killer of good judgment. After 40, protecting judgment becomes critical. Bad decisions now echo longer. This is also where people confront a hard truth. You can't redo the past, but you don't need to. Buffett didn't believe regret should freeze people. He believed regret should sharpen thinking. The window isn't closed, but it's narrower. That doesn't mean rush. It means precision. After 40, small improvements matter more than big gambles. Reducing fixed costs slightly, increasing savings intentionally, simplifying investments, reducing dependency. These don't make headlines, but they change trajectories. Buffett loved trajectory. He cared less about where you are today and more about where the path leads. This is where the climax becomes empowering, because once you accept that time matters more now, you stop wasting it. You stop chasing things that don't compound. You stop maintaining systems that drain energy. You stop postponing decisions that only get harder later. Buffett believed that the most dangerous sentence after 40 is, "I'll deal with that later." Later is no longer cheap. Later is expensive. Later carries opportunity cost. Later compounds regret. That's why now matters. Not because you're old, but because you're experienced enough to act wisely. Buffett believed experience is wasted if it doesn't change behavior. This is the moment where the viewer realizes, I don't need to panic, but I can't drift anymore. That realization is powerful. It's the shift from passive hope to active alignment, from autopilot to intention, from effort to structure. That's the climax. The point where denial fades and clarity takes its place. And clarity doesn't scream. It steadies, it simplifies, it points forward. After everything we've talked about, Buffett's message comes down to something very simple. Not easy, not flashy, but clear. If you are over 40, the most important thing you can do is stop living on autopilot and start aligning your money with reality as it is now, not as it used to be. Buffett didn't believe this age was about regret. He believed it was about responsibility. Responsibility to face facts. Responsibility to simplify. Responsibility to protect what you've already built. Most people think wisdom comes naturally with age. Buffett knew wisdom only shows up when you're willing to adjust. If nothing changes after 40, pressure slowly increases. Income feels heavier, decisions feel riskier, time feels tighter. Not because you're failing, but because the structure stayed the same while life changed. That's the core lesson. Buffett didn't panic about age, he respected it. Respecting age means respecting limits. Energy isn't unlimited anymore. Recovery isn't instant. Time isn't flexible. That doesn't mean giving up. It means choosing better. Buffett believed that after 40, success isn't about proving you can still grind. It's about building a life that doesn't require constant grinding. Grinding forever isn't strength. It's fragility. Another hard truth Buffett understood is that most people over 40 don't need more ambition. They need better structure. More ambition often just adds stress. More structure reduces it. Structure gives you breathing room. Breathing room gives you better decisions. Better decisions protect the future. That's the chain most people miss. They chase motivation instead of designing systems. Buffett designed systems, simple ones, boring ones, but systems that worked even when life got busy, stressful, or unpredictable. That's what makes his advice so calm. It's not about urgency. It's about alignment. Alignment between how you earn, how you live, how much energy you realistically have, how much risk you can actually afford. When those are aligned, money stops being a source of anxiety. When they're not, anxiety grows, even if income is high. Buffett saw that clearly. He saw people with great incomes feel trapped. Not trapped by debt necessarily, but by dependency. Dependency on showing up every day. Dependency on constant effort. Dependency on everything staying the same. After 40, that dependency becomes uncomfortable. That discomfort is not failure. It's a signal. A signal that it's time to shift from growth by effort to growth by design. Design means asking hard questions early before life forces them. Questions like, what actually keeps working if I slow down? What drains me that doesn't compound? What could I simplify without losing what matters? Buffett didn't avoid these questions. He believed avoiding them is what creates regret later. Another important part of his thinking is this. After 40, you don't need to catch up. Chasing creates panic. Panic creates mistakes. Buffett believed the right move isn't speed, it's precision. Small, precise changes now matter more than big, risky moves. Lowering fixed costs a bit, increasing savings intentionally, simplifying investments, reducing dependency where possible. These changes don't feel dramatic, but they change trajectories. Buffett cared deeply about trajectory. He didn't obsess over today's numbers, he obsessed over where the path leads. That's why he believed after 40 the worst mistake isn't doing too little, it's continuing without direction. Direction doesn't require perfection, it requires honesty. Honesty about what you want the next 10-20 years to feel like. Less stress or more flexibility or more obligation, more calm or more pressure. Money is just a tool to support those answers. Another thing Buffett understood is that peace of mind is not a luxury, it's a foundation. People who feel calm make better decisions. People who feel trapped make rushed ones. After 40, protecting peace of mind becomes a serious financial strategy. That means avoiding unnecessary complexity, avoiding debt that steals sleep, avoiding commitments that drain energy, avoiding comparison. Comparison is especially dangerous later in life. Comparing yourself to younger people creates pressure. Comparing yourself to wealthier people creates dissatisfaction. Buffett didn't compare. He focused on what worked for him. That focus is freeing. Another lesson that matters here is that it's not too late, but it is time-sensitive. That's an uncomfortable balance. It means you still have power, but it also means delay is expensive. Buffett believed acknowledging this isn't depressing. It's motivating if you respond with calm action instead of fear. Fear says I need to do something drastic. Wisdom says I need to do something deliberate. Buffett chose deliberate. That's why his advice after 40 feels steady. No hype, no rush, no shortcuts, just clarity. Clarity about what actually compounds now. At this stage, what compounds best isn't just money. It's reduced stress, better focus, fewer dependencies, more optionality. Optionality is the real prize. Optionality means you can choose. Choose to slow down, choose to pivot, choose to say no. Buffett believed optionality is what separates people who age calmly from people who age anxiously. And optionality is built, not wished for. Another important truth is this: after 40, the goal isn't maximizing wealth, it's minimizing regret. Regret comes from knowing you saw the issue, but didn't act. Buffett didn't want people to feel that. That's why his advice isn't about fear. It's about responsibility. Responsibility to future you. Future you doesn't need you to be perfect. Future you needs you to be intentional. That means doing fewer things, but doing the right ones. It means accepting trade-offs consciously instead of drifting into them. It means understanding that later isn't a safety net anymore. Later is a multiplier. It multiplies whatever structure you already have. If the structure is fragile, later makes it worse. If the structure is solid, later makes it stronger. That's why now matters. Not because you're running out of time, but because time now amplifies decisions faster than before. Buffett respected that amplification. He didn't fight it, he used it. That's the final lesson. If you are over 40, Buffett didn't want you to panic. He wanted you to stop drifting, to stop assuming effort will always fix things, to stop assuming stability equals safety, to stop assuming you'll feel ready later. Readiness doesn't arrive on its own. It's created, quietly, deliberately, one aligned decision at a time. That's how calm futures are built. Not with noise, not with urgency, but with clarity and respect for reality. Watch the next video. Watch the